both the workplace and household inputs, and you get the citizens' total social cost per day to support what they're doing, whether it's at the home, sustaining themselves for another day of living, or at work, producing the really cool t-shirts. All of that you have to factor in. So this is what it costs to sustain this particular citizen per day. And once again, the units of this is basically labor hours modified by their unpleasantness and the wastefulness, aka utilization rate. Okay, so we've looked at the costs from workplace and citizen perspective. Now we're going to go on to benefits. Okay, what's the benefit of this producer A? Well, they're producing really cool t-shirts, as we saw above. Okay, this is how many produced. This is how many that are socially necessary, we might say, if we take into account our utilization rate. Okay, once again, society is only using about 35% of these t-shirts. The rest are sitting in a warehouse well past their target duration of inventory of excess inventory for a rainy day. Only 35% of the t-shirts are being used by their target date of storage, right? So where are we at? So out of those 18, only about 35% of them are really socially necessary. You could cut this production by a third, make this utilization rate closer to 1, and that'd be a lot better. Then if you produced 6.3, but you had a utilization rate of 1, well, then that's how many socially necessary units you'd have of these really cool t-shirts. So that's the producer's social benefit right here. What's the citizen's social benefit? Well, they work at this producer A, and their coworkers, let's say, have decided that they're responsible for about 12.5% of the work that gets done at that workplace. Now, once again, this is for the workplace to decide among themselves how much of a role each coworker has. If they want to be simple about it, they could just take the number of coworkers and divide 1 by that number to get, if they have 10 coworkers, they could just assume that each coworker is responsible for 10% of the output. Or they could have more complicated calculations where they say, well, producer A really goes above and beyond at work and really tries really hard and seems to be, an outstanding worker. So we're going to give this producer A a little bit larger of a percentage share of the credit for what this workplace produces. And maybe this other guy is lazy, and we'll give him or her, a lower percentage share of credit for what this workplace is producing. Here's the item that they're producing. This is the total workplace's socially necessary outputs per day, 6.3 t-shirts. And then this is the citizen's share. This is what the citizen produces per day. Okay? So this is the citizen's social benefit to society. So we've looked at costs, we've looked at benefits. Now we go to the comprehensive social benefit evaluation. All right. And first we'll look at the costs, and then we'll look at the benefits. Okay. So first the costs. We've seen how much it takes to support this citizen each day. Unpleasant and, labor hours modified by unpleasantness and unnecessariness. Right there, that number goes down here. And then we might have some additional ancillary qualitative things to consider of what this citizen costs to society. We don't just want to totally narrow it down to a number. The numbers are nice because it makes this evaluation a little bit more objective and less prone to just favoritism and popularity contests. I figure you needed something to go off of. But you might have other things too, like the cousin testifies that this citizen A threatened to punch me for disagreeing with his political views. Maybe the neighbor has testified to, central data agency that the citizen vandalized my apartment front door with swastikas. That would not be good either. You'd want to take that into account. Then you get the benefits. What does this citizen produce for society? Well, about 0.788 really cool t-shirts per day. And also being an awesome guy, according to this friend, and according to the coworker, going the extra mile to teach newcomers the ropes. All right. So these are things that would be visible to society, publicly visible for each person. Okay. And you'd be able to grade your fellow citizens then on their costs and benefits to society. And this is necessarily a subjective, a subjective calculation you have to make. There's no way to automate this. All right. There's no rate of profit you can possibly calculate. Why is that? Well, because their outputs, these are not commodities. These are use values. All right. And there's no really way to tell the worth of a use value except subjectively. All right. So you got to decide, is it worth it to produce about, 0.8 really cool t-shirts by expending, this much socially unpleasant labor per day? Is this a good price? I don't know. You'd have to decide that for yourself and then adjust it, taking these other things into consideration as well. And after all that, you would give this citizen a grade. And you could just spend all day, if you wanted, grading other citizens, almost like on Facebook, glancing over these stats and, thumbs up or thumbs down, punching in basically a letter grade. So each citizen would have a bunch of grades from other people. You wouldn't have to grade every other citizen in the country, of course, or in the world. But you might, focus on grading people that you actually know pretty well. And maybe a few others, random others. I don't know. You could decide that on your own. But in any case, each citizen would have a number of grades from other citizens. And you would then average all those grades to get an average grade of how the citizen has been graded by society for their costs and benefits. And this is sort of your, overall score. And this determines then, or could determine, where you get in line on the wait list for things that are in scarce supply and are rationed. So who gets first dibs? Well, it's this Citizen E here, gets the highest ratings. Who gets last dibs? Citizen B. Okay. Now, the next thing to think about is, can this system be gamed? All right. How would you game the system? For example, let's say producer A, the workers at this workplace, decide to exaggerate the unpleasantness of their labor. They say, "Oh, we work so hard, we should be entitled to more." Will this work? Will this make any difference according to these calculations? And as a matter of fact, no, it really will not, because increasing the unpleasantness of the labor does not increase the social benefit of things that are produced. All it does is increase the cost, actually. And in fact, most of the unpleasantness is not under your control. It's under the control of the previous producer and what they say. So wherever you got your stuff from, whatever they reported, would mostly factor into the total social unpleasantness. Your part would be just a very tiny part of that. And in any case, it wouldn't make any difference to exaggerate, oh, my work is so hard. Because all this does is tell society what it costs to produce this item. Which, if anything, it goes against you if you over-exaggerate, how hard your work is, because then that shows up as the cost, whereas the only thing that's going to speak in your favor is how much of something you actually produce and what its utilization rate is, and what your coworkers, how much of a share of the credit for producing that thing they give you.